Welcome to our mutual interest. I'm your host, Mina Fombo, but it's your stories that make this show more than a housing podcast. Spades in the grind, let's go. This is part 2 of our episode focused on refugees and asylum seekers in housing. I'm joined by Moud Goba, National Director of Micro Rainbow and a leading advocate for LGBTQI refugees and asylum seekers. As a refugee herself, Moud fled Zimbabwe to escape persecution and has since dedicated her life to ensuring others seeking sanctuary are treated with dignity, kindness and respect. Through Micro Rainbow, she works to provide safe housing for LGBTQI refugees and asylum seekers, creating spaces where they can rebuild their lives free from discrimination. Let's get into it. Moud, I'm so excited to speak to you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well, and thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So we're going to get straight into it because, time is short and you've got, your experiences in this sector is so vast. And I really want to hear everything you've got to say. And as our listener goes on this journey with us, when we get to the end, I know they're going to want more, but okay. we'll try and get as much in as possible. So Moud, for our listener, just tell us a little bit how you find yourself in this world of housing.
So my name is Moud Goba. I'm a refugee from Zimbabwe and I came to the UK and sought asylum because of my sexuality. And the experience that I went through, ignited a passion in me in working with refugees who are homeless. That's how I found myself in the sector.
And I guess, tell us a little bit more about that. So you said you came as a refugee. When was that?
I came early 2000s. And I went through the asylum process of seeking asylum, finding safety. And then when that was given, I became a refugee. But throughout this journey, it was not always easy. It was very challenging in terms of accommodation and safe accommodation, sharing with other refugees who hold homophobic views. It was such a challenge. Eventually, after 2010, I got my refugee status.
That's amazing. So let's break it down a little bit. So you came to the UK, and I guess, you find yourself in housing. You've kind of dedicated parts of your career to supporting people go through this process that you went through because of some of the challenges you experienced. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
And so would you say, I guess reflecting back, let's break it down. So first of all, for our listener, what's the difference between an asylum seeker and a refugee, first and foremost?
So when a person is seeking asylum, is they've come to the UK and they've said that I need safety, and they're going through the process that is a person seeking asylum. And once they're processed, then the Home Office recognizes that they need safety and they can't go back to their home country for various reasons. For the people that I work with, is because they're lesbian, gay, trans, bisexual, queer, and they come from a country where they're still criminalized. There's still at least 60 countries that criminalize people who are LGBT. So you can seek safety, especially if your life is in danger. When the Home Office processes you and realize that you do need safety, then they give you refugee status. Then you become a refugee who can stay in the UK.
Okay. And if we break that down even further, so a lot of people you see on the news or just, talk on socials are sort of like, well, we should have a system where people can get processed in their own country. So just go through some of the challenges or the dangers that type of process, I guess, would present to individuals, and then maybe explain what kind of things they'd have to do to prove that status over here.
So I think there's a lot of misconception on first who an asylum seeker is, or a person seeking asylum, and how many they are. The misconception is that there are lots of people who are seeking asylum who are coming to the country to take away. But really, among the migrant population is just at least 7% who are people seeking asylum. And some of those people came through humanitarian schemes, as well as in the broader general population of the UK population. 0.6% are people who, or in 2022 when we had the census, 0.6% of the UK population with people who are seeking asylum. So sometimes it's kind of magnified in the media of who or how many people are, and they're coming to take away. That's not always the case. And then in terms of why can people be processed in their country, you can't stay in a country where you're criminalized. For example, there are countries such as Uganda and Nigeria who have laws in place that can imprison you for up to 14 years or 20 years because you're gay, you're queer. And there are at least 6 countries that can still effect the death penalty if you're found to be a gay person. So that's why they can't be processed in the country, or they can't be safe in the country, because other people have been imprisoned. And when they get the opportunity to flee, they do so.
Of course. And I think there's something there just, to really kind of land, essentially, these are our human rights, okay? We have the right to sort of be here, to exist, not even just to exist, but to thrive, and to thrive sort of safely. And I think if you're in a situation where you're faced with that threat, it's inevitable and obvious that you're going to want to try to have something better for yourself. At a human level, that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
That's true. That's true. I think all of us, if you're faced in, or maybe let me give an example. I felt that people understood who a refugee was after, the invasion of Ukraine, because it was people they could recognize, people who were like them, and it was closer to home, so they could see, what's happening and why people are fleeing. So as humans, we always seek safety when we're in danger.
Just looping back round, so we've got the organisation Micro Rainbow. If you could tell us a little bit about how your organisation links into all this.
So Micro Rainbow is an organisation that was founded by Sebastian Roca in 2012. And our work is mainly in tackling the homelessness of LGBTQI people seeking asylum. But in this work, we provide direct safe housing to LGBTQI people, as well as provide a social inclusion work to tackle the isolation and moving on work, employability work, when people are refugees, supporting them to get jobs, to move on with their lives. A lot of people always ask why housing for LGBTQI people seeking asylum. But the truth is, so when people come to the UK, they're put in home office provided accommodation, and that is with other refugees from their home country. So sometimes they're still not safe in that situation where people still hold homophobic views. They're often abused by other refugees because of if they're easily identified as LGBTQI, or if they come from cultures where, for example, a lesbian woman is easily identified as a lesbian woman and she's traveling on her own, she doesn't have a husband. You get a lot of questions. Why do you not have a chaperone or a husband? Why are you traveling on your own? Why are you seeking asylum? So people can still be in these situations where they are abused. We've had people who've been, beaten up by other refugees, people who have been experienced sexual violence, trans people who have been constantly harassed because of who they are by other refugees. So what we do is we provide safe housing for those people.
And so you're based across the UK. I know you've recently branched out into Wales. Can you tell us a bit about the work in Wales?
We have people who are LGBTQI refugees within Wales, and we started work in Wales in 2023. We have also some outreach officers who are working in Wales. We started our work in social inclusion. To come back a little bit, why we do our social inclusion work is because a lot of the people that we work with are ostracized by their family. They're ostracized from their religious spaces, from spaces where traditionally refugees get support from. So they end up being extremely isolated. So we started our social inclusion work within Wales, and we realized that there are people there as well in Wales who need safe accommodation. So we have started to work in Wales and are working on our first safe house in Wales at the moment.
I love this. This is amazing. I think when you kind of break it down, and obviously I've been aware of your work, when you talked earlier about how sometimes people ask, why do we need this? To me, it feels like it's a no-brainer, but actually, I guess it's not to underestimate what people do or don't know about other people's situations. And I think even just having this conversation with you now, our listener, hopefully will share the information that they're hearing and just bring more insight into what happens to people in this space and to the marginalized groups within the LGBT community, especially people with refugee and asylum status.
I think we underestimate, like sometimes we always don't know what battles are within different communities, and it is through others, through learning, through hearing that we end up learning these things.
It sounds like there's a lot of challenges. And again, you had your own experiences. So in between, I guess, coming through the challenge that you had to kind of get your status and then doing this work, like, what do you do for fun? Like, what do you do to be hopeful? And what other areas, are you involved in that you would say, I guess, once someone is settled, you kind of want access to?
I travel. I like traveling. So that's what I do for fun. I travel. But I think when you're working within housing or homelessness services, it's always important to self-care a lot. It's one of those spaces where you do work with a lot of marginalized communities who don't always have access to housing or equity. So it's important for me to always kind of self-care. So I try. Lately, I'm trying, whereas before, when you're a person with lived experience, especially within housing as a migrant, you always want to support others there, and then sometimes you forget yourself and you end up working a lot. In terms of fun, I travel, but also I try and do something to self-care every week.
Yeah, I think there's been a big conversation right now, especially, it's always kind of been there, but I guess in a post-COVID world, thinking more about taking care of our mental health, well-being, self-care, all of those areas is something that I think, especially as a sector, as the challenges become more increased, there's always less money, things cost more. The experiences that we're all having as employees, as colleagues within the sector, we also know that our tenants are experiencing as well from the other side. And so I think being able to talk openly and share like what we do for self-care. So when I say what do you do for fun, it sounded maybe not flippant, but like it's not just about, I'm glad that you took it to the self-care page. But yeah, it's not just about fun, but it's about how do we take care of ourselves in this sector when we are, like you said, especially when you're really passionate or when you've had lived experience or when you're working with people day in, day out, that you're there to support them in a space where they need support, as opposed to maybe they've come through the other side and they don't need as much support. You're kind of catching them at the point where they really do. So I think it is really important as a sector that we focus on that. I'm trying to think, like, for me, like I love sport, and people will hear me talk about sport all the time, and that's my kind of like self-care, is playing sport or watching sport. Live sport especially is kind of my escapism, especially when like your team is losing. You can't think of anything else in that moment. You're just kind of focused on that. I guess circling back, how many beds do you have? And then I guess what practically on the ground can we do as a sector to support the work that you do?
So at the moment, we've got 25 houses, and that is within London, the Midlands, the Northwest, and then now Wales. And in terms of bed spaces, so we calculate by bed spaces, we currently provide up to 35,000 nights of bed spaces to people who are homeless. And then in terms of what the community can do, the most important for us always is for people to raise awareness of the challenges that people seeking asylum go through, and also educate others, especially around the misconception of what a refugee is, who is a person seeking asylum. And then in terms of practically, we have like a wish list on our website, microrainbow.org. I'm sorry, advertising.
But no, don't be sorry. I love the fact that it's a wish list. It's kind of like, you have a wedding and you kind of like, people put out, these are the gifts that I want. So yeah, tell us what's on your wish list.
So on our wish list is like every time we open a house, the community actually help us to to decorate it, from things like spoons, plates, pillows, duvets. Nothing is ever too small. Like people have sent us cooking sticks from this wish list, just something to give, new refugees a start, or people seeing asylum a start in their new home. So yes, we do have that wish list. People can join as allies on our website to support us. So yes, always we rely on the community. We also have people who volunteer, especially if they speak different languages, to help us with translations. Most of our social inclusion work as well, we are supported, and moving on, we're supported by volunteers. People can volunteer to like host a workshop, well-being workshop. We have things such as, singing for well-being that is, facilitated by different facilitators, or sometimes people take our beneficiaries to visit different places in the UK, as well as in our employability work. We have people volunteering, including corporates, to support people in writing CVs, understanding the UK labour market, learning soft skills, as well as interview training techniques, sometimes as well as mentoring, like, mentoring people who are in different careers, just to help people to integrate in their new communities, find jobs, and then, thrive.
I'm just thinking people can go on your website, so microrainbow.org, and again, we'll link this in the notes. But essentially, it's anything from offering support to people that are moving into a new home, so any sort of household items. It can be offering workshops or training, coaching, mentoring, other volunteering, but ultimately, they should just get in touch with you, look at the wish list, get in touch, and then take the conversation from there. I go one bigger and say, do you have a house? Do you know what I mean? If you're someone who's got a house, maybe you rent it out, but actually you're thinking it's being refurbished and you want to, rent it out in a different way, maybe they could offer you their house. Nothing is too big or too small.
We welcome people to reach out to us, and we will speak and see how we can support, or they can support us.
Looking at the type of person who works in housing, we talk a lot about values, principles. What kind of values and, I guess, qualities do you see in the people you work with? And the reason I ask this question is, we do need more people in housing. We do want to see more representation and more communities represented within the housing sector. And so I'm just thinking, what kind of qualities and values do you see in the people that do this work?
I think the first value that I see is people who is caring and kind, and they have a real passion for social justice, especially around supporting marginalized people. But yes, those are the values that I see in the people that I've worked with. They really are caring and kind, very transparent, as well as, like I said, having that real passion for social justice.
Perfect. And so just circling back now, as we kind of come towards the end, I guess where I want to go is, from where you sit, you've been around the sector for a long time. Where you sit, what do you think are some of the top, I guess, challenges that are coming our way that in relation to the work that you do? And then what are you hopeful for?
In terms of the challenges, I guess it is, affordable housing, but sometimes I see challenges also as opportunity. It's an opportunity for us as a community to develop more affordable housing, to create sustainable solutions to tackling, homelessness, or for us to develop more innovative social housing models, and provisions for the community. So while it is a challenge, it's also an opportunity for us to come together to really tackle homelessness and find housing solutions. What am I hopeful for? I'm always hopeful that, we continue, or we bring more people to recognize all human beings with respect and dignity, and for us to really create equitable environments where we're all living, working, and thriving as a people. That's always my hope.
And I'm sat here, you can't see me, but I'm kind of snapping my fingers and nodding away in the background. I love that. We do want to see people thriving. And I think one of the things that we're focused on at Merthyr Valleys Homes is one of our principles of our corporate plan for the next 5 years is about supporting people to thrive. So I love the fact that terminology resonates across sectors. That's our time. Thank you so much for chatting to me, and hopefully we'll connect again.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Our mutual interest is powered by Merthyr Valleys Homes.